I will go ahead and call to order the Thursday, December 14th, 2017 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Before we start, to everybody in the audience, thank you for coming out and braving this miserable weather. We certainly appreciate that. And to everybody, happy holidays. The board does not write the zoning ordinance, but does have the authority to grant relief from it where practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship would result. The board will vote on each agenda item following a public hearing. Use variance requests require a minimum of 6 affirmative votes in order to grant the requested variances. Non-use variance requests require a minimum of 5 affirmative votes in order to grant the variances. If you would like to request that the board adjourn or table your case due to an absence of a full board, which is not the case this evening, we do have a full board. So we'll move right along to petitioners shall do their best to limit their presentations to 10 minutes. Each participant in a public hearing shall do their best to limit their comments to 3 minutes. The first order of business is the approval of the minutes for November 9, 2017.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Support.
Seconded. Any additions, deletions, corrections? Not seeing any, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Mr. Murphy, we do not have any old business that I'm aware of. So that moves us right along to our first item of new business, which is item D1. Case number 171241, public hearing on the appeal of CGP Architecture petitioner and Yuri Logvin, owner for the following variances, and I won't read them all through. I'll just hand you the ball and let you run with it.
Absolutely. I'm going to blabber on about them anyways. So this site currently contains a 2-family dwelling unit, and the petitioner proposes to demolish it and construct a 3-story, 3-unit multifamily development. The site's zoned neighborhood business, and residential units are allowed if they're above a first-floor use, such as a retail operation or office or restaurant. It doesn't allow strictly residential. So they are seeking a use variance in order to have simply residential on this piece of property, this neighborhood business property. We apply the bulk and area standards of the the multiple family residential zoning district to this proposal. So as such, they're required to provide they're required to have a certain lot size per the number of residential units that they wish to build. So for 3 residential units, it would require a minimum lot size of 12,000 square feet, and according to the petitioner's drawings, the lot is a little under 7,000 square feet. So they don't meet that threshold. They're seeking a waiver of approximately of the difference. The ordinance allows for a maximum building height of 30 feet, and according to the petitioner's elevations that they provided, the building elevation illustrates a height of 32 feet. So they're seeking a waiver of 2 feet from that maximum allowable 30 feet of foot height. Multifamily residential zoning district, again, which are the standards that we've applied, require that any new multifamily structure be 25 feet from all property lines. And in this case, the proposed building would have no setback, and I'll refer to the site plan as we go through this. Might be a little simpler. The building is built all the way to the south property line along East 11 Mile Road. So they're seeking a waiver of 25 feet from that minimum 25-foot standard for the east setback. The building would have a 12-foot it would have a 12-foot east setback. And there's a commercial building to the east of it. There's a distance of 12 feet, so they're seeking a waiver measured to the building itself. The building has a 10-foot north setback from the property line to the north, and it complies with the minimum required setback on the driveway side, which is the access to the garage portions and entrances of those units. Within this 12-foot setback, east setback between the proposed building and the commercial building to the east, the petitioner is proposing to have staircases that lead down to courtyards for each of the units, and those staircases extend all the way to the property line. So they're seeking a waiver from the standard to have the setback, the 25-foot setback, in order to have the second-story decks and the staircases go all the way to the property line. So we separated the variance request for the setback from the structure itself, listed that as a separate waiver, and listed the balconies and the staircases as another waiver. So the board could split them up if they so choose to grant one versus another if you were not in favor of one versus another. The building's primary facade, the entrances to each of the units, you can see, face the internal driveway. The building's primary facade does not front along the street, the adjacent street, which is 11 Mile Road, and you can see that from the elevations that are depicted. And I think this perspective is probably the best one. So you'll see the illustration, which shows that the primary entrances to the 3 units is not on 11 Mile Road, but on the service entrance. So that's a standard in the zoning ordinance that they are seeking a waiver from. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Are there any questions for staff at this point? Mr. Kroll?
Would we be able to approve A through G and not approve H?
Let me look at them once again.
It'd be tough.
So you're interested in the facade. Well, the petitioner, you'd probably best to have a conversation with the petitioner to see if that would be something that they would be able to modify their design and still make the development happen. Based on the layout that they currently have, I would think that might be challenging for them.
Yes, ma'am.
Joseph, it says there's a 2-foot variance requested for the height, but from this drawing, it looks like it's 36 feet. So where do you measure the 32 from?
Sure. They provided a set of drawings, the site plan, the elevations, and the floor plan. So we based the variance request on the stamped and sealed drawings, which is what I'm referring to on the screen as part of the packet. And if you'll see that elevation, it illustrates, a flat roof line, an entirely different profile from the material that was submitted with their written request. You'll see that reference number as 32 feet. So yes, we did note that they provided an entirely different cross-section, different from the floor plans and entirely different from the elevations that were shown on this particular sheet. We went with the drawings that are signed and sealed because they match the floor plans and they match the site plan. That cross-section didn't match anything else.
Thanks.
Anybody else? All right, not seeing anybody. I see the petitioner is present.
Thank you. My name is Konstantin Pappas. I'm the architect for Yuri Logvin. This is Mr. Yuri Logvin. He's the owner of the property. He's owned the property for a couple years. I wanted to pass this document out, and I think you do have it in your package. So we've kind of highlighted it at least a little bit in red. Actually, I just have a few questions, Mr. Murphy. If I'm correct, everything completely around this piece of property is zoned neighborhood business, I believe, according to what we saw in the ordinance.
I'd have to defer to the zoning map. I don't have that in front of me right now to see if the properties just to the north are also zoned neighborhood business. I believe one of the properties on Mason Court was recently rezoned.
Is that? Yeah. From what we saw of the ordinance, it looked as if it was all neighborhood business in and around. I can tell you that Mr. Logvin has tried to reach out to everybody, every owner to the north, to the west, to the east. We've had absolutely no response. The whole idea was to maybe, instead of doing this development, try to make it a little bit larger, try to get a little bit more property that allowed us the ability of not necessarily come before you. He had no luck whatsoever with anybody kind of responding back. So primarily what happens is he has this individual piece of property, and based on the setbacks that are required, you'll see this, that the only area that quite frankly is really allowed to build on is this little rectangular area which is into the middle based on the setbacks relative to a multiple use. So you can see that this site is extremely difficult to do anything on, if not impossible. So that's why we're really kind of coming forth before you seeking these associated variances. Second of all, things seem to be kind of changing along 11 Mile as we see. We're starting to see more kind of multiple type developments there, more larger urban developments, a little bit more in maybe keeping with the true urban environment. And as you can see, the city is changing quite a bit. We're starting to see that where our office, we're located right down on Washington. So we're starting to see a lot of that kind of changing in this general area. So I can address any one of the questions that any one of the members may have. And basically, I think at this particular point, we're here to answer any questions that you may have individually on each variance accordingly.
Any questions for the petitioner at this point?
I have one.
We'll
Yes.
start over here with Ms. Zukin.
Thank you. This shaded area that you handed out, that is the usable area if you get the use variance,
Yes,
correct? But if you
yes.
did it as neighborhood business, you would have more area that you could build on, correct?
No. Well,
If- if you-
well,
Used a different project,
yes, well, different use.
yes.
Yes. So for instance, if we went to some type of a small business, if it were there, it still would be very, very difficult because you got the parking, you have aisle widths, you have all those type of things that you have to try to take care of relative to your ordinance requirements. I'm just saying that it's like a real difficult, very small little piece of property. So we're trying to come up with an idea here that says, seems like there's, the need is here for more housing, better quality housing. This is not a micro unit, so maybe people may say, well, we have micro units down the street. This is not a micro unit. There are 3 units. They're approximately anywhere between 1,600 to 1,700 square feet apiece. 2-bedroom, and we're anticipating 2-bedroom condos with attached garage underneath each one of the condos.
And Mr. Clapp.
No, I think this is a very creative use of a very tight infill lot. I think it looks great, too. One question, though, I think Mr. Kroll just mentioned this about the front door, possibly.
Yes.
The front is a bit uninviting. There's not much glass at the grade level, or even at the second level.
Yes.
Did you consider possibly pushing the building back a bit? I get safety. You're up against the lot line now, but did
Yeah.
you consider pushing it back 5 feet, 10 feet to maybe get that front door along 11 Mile?
Yeah, I think
For one of the
we could.
units?
Yeah, I think we could. For one of the units, you're saying,
Exactly,
right?
for one of
Yeah.
the units.
No, I could see that. It probably would, I think we can reproportion everything to probably make that work. Yeah, and by the way, one of the things that we talked about when we had submitted this to the planning department was, there were some questions on the elevations. Well, can you change the elevations here and there? I guess the answer to that is yes, and we could work with the planning department in order to make everybody relatively happy. So we really welcome that, and we could do that with really no problem.
Did you have a comment, Mr. Kroll?
That was my question. so
Yeah.
Thank you for answering that.
Anybody else? All right, not seeing anybody, I'm going to ask you gentlemen to take a seat real quickly in case anybody from the audience wants to speak on this. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to address us on this matter? Not seeing anybody, I will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to this side of the table. Mr. Kroll?
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion, based on the information that they just talked about on H. I'll make a motion to approve all variances.
All A through H?
Yes.
Motion by Mr. Kroll.
I have a question.
Before we do that, we need to either second it or let it die.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a second by Mr. Klatt. Ms. Zukin?
If we approve A through H as written, then we can't put the criteria of the front door on 11 Mile. Is that correct?
Oh, can I make a friendly amendment to that?
You can make it, and Mr. Klatt can second it if you want to.
Yeah, I really meant to say that, so let's go A through
G?
G. Make a motion to approve A through G.
I'll actually second that. That's what I meant to say at the first place. So I'll second that one. Thank you.
Do you want to follow up on your motion at all, or?
Again, I think Mr. Klatt put it well, that I think this is a real good use of land. I mean, 3 nice units. I was bothered by the design onto 11 Mile Road. Otherwise, I think it's a great use of land. I mean, I think of some things like the Harrison and some other projects that people said it's too dense, it's too this, it's too that. And I mean, everybody drives by that goes, wow. So I think it can really be done well. 11 Mile is changing. we've invested a lot of money in 11 Mile, so I mean, I think it's, everything we do to it just enhances it, so I'm in favor of creative things like this.
Yes, sir.
I have a question, Joseph. If we don't do H, I can understand that works for that one unit right there. How does that affect the other 2 units?
I think perhaps the architect would be able to address that for you, if it's appropriate.
What we would probably do there is leave the other 2 units as they are, and then make the entry off of the street on 11 Mile for that end unit. And I think the way it's designed right now, it's relatively easy of not only pushing everything back, but at the same time even turning the main entry door and bring it along 11 Mile. So I think there's some opportunities there.
Chime in with some comment.
Of course.
When you say push everything back, there's a variance related to the 10-foot rear yard, we'll say rear yard setback. If you push everything back and that becomes smaller, it necessitates a greater variance? Are you referring to something different? Okay.
Well, when I'm referring, there's a core kind of like in the middle between the stair, and then there's another
Okay.
kind of area. So the idea was that area is going to get a little thinner. We really have to look at the garages to make sure maybe the garage width gets a little bit smaller. So I guess the idea becomes there's some variations in the plan that we're going to have to make in order to make this happen. I also think once we do that, we also have an opportunity to do a little bit nicer landscaping all along the whole front too, right? Because now that it's set back, gives us that ability to do some type of greenery all along that area. So I think it's a good suggestion, and we don't really have a problem with it. I think that could work very, very well. I only wanted to make one other mention, is that the more these type of projects get done along 11 Mile, and I'm glad Mr. Kroll has brought this up, the better the type of architecture and the changing architecture is going to take place on 11 Mile. I think in a very short period of time, you get 1, 2, 3, 4 of these projects along there, all of a sudden you're going to see a whole bunch of different things being done there, and it's just not going to be, you know, a road that you drive down. That's the typical thing that you see everywhere else. I think there's a great opportunity.
I have a question for
Yes.
the petitioner about the height. So in the illustration has the traditional roof on it.
Right.
You've got the 10 feet, 9 foot for the, 10 feet for the garage, 9 foot for
Right.
the main level, 9 foot for the upper level, and then are those heights changing then?
Well,
For
this
the-
is why we had that little sketch in. We're
I
kind of
understand
one.
you're having a flat roof, but.
Well, that's the question, whether we have the flat roof or we have a pitched roof. If we have this pitched roof, then we're gonna probably need about 34, 36 feet. Right now, we're asking for the 2 foot, you know, hopefully, at least at that point, if we do decide to go with the flat roof area, we can get all that stuff to work in. But, after looking at it, we're gonna kind of look at this very, very closely and evaluate, is it simpler to do it out of a pitched roof? Is it simpler to do it out of a flat roof? I don't know, you know, I mean, that's something that Mr. Logvin and our office are gonna have to sit down and look at it closely. So at least at this point, we're looking for that 2 foot variance. If we come to an agreement and the pitched roof is the way he wants to go, we'll be before you again then, if that's the case. By the way, this is another issue that we're starting to see within your ordinance. These heights, they're just becoming very, very difficult as each one of these developments occur. Normally, we see in most municipalities a 35-foot height between finished grade and the average height of everything. So it seems like this is like tremendously stringent within the city. We're not going to change it, obviously, but maybe there should be a text amendment in order to evaluate it. I think it's going to give that more opportunity from a design standpoint to maybe have something a little more consistent instead of coming back and forth, back and forth. Just a suggestion, that's all.
Mr. Klett, and Mr. Curtis.
Joseph, were you alluding to like item E, like for example, if the petitioner chooses to move the building back to the north, would we have to amend the language for item E? Because we'd be if waiving 15 feet of the minimum required 25 feet north, so if the building moves back, does that adjust the language of item E? Or is that okay?
No, he was referring to being able to, I'll say, pinch the floor plan.
Okay, so
that it
not the
didn't
building,
modify the
just the
footprint of the
entry. I
building.
see, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, that same setback would stay, we would just pinch the building on the inside.
Because you mentioned landscapes, I thought you were pushing the building back possibly. I understand. Thank you.
Mr. Curtis?
Yeah, that was my actual point. There's clarity on everything back. That was a phrase I wanted to be clear on. So,
Right.
no, we're not moving the entire
That's right.
structure because that
Front
runs
yard
into a setback in the back. So, just real quick, just curious.
Yes.
By the way, unfortunately, your interest in changing ordinance, this isn't the board.
I know that. I
They
know.
don't ask
I'm very
us.
aware of that.
But you mentioned earlier in your presentation the idea of 11 Mile becoming more urban, Royal Oak becoming more urban. I'm just curious what that means to you. I didn't really understand the
I
word.
think, and Mr. Klatt's an architect too, and I don't know if any one of you others are. I think you're starting to get a sense that these communities like Royal Oak, like Ferndale, which other one, Pontiac, obviously Birmingham. Birmingham had gone through a major master plan revision, and that took place a number of years ago, in which the actual mayor of Birmingham happens to be an architect, and he had asked for a fabulous architect, and I think he was out of Florida. He came in, Duani, you're familiar with Duani's work, and he came in and came up with this master plan to raise the height from, I think it was 2 stories to 5 stories. And that one move, everybody didn't like that. It was changing the character, doing this, do that. That one move absolutely exploded as far as Birmingham is concerned. Now, was it done in the right way? Was it done in the wrong way? That's a question for everybody to see. But I think what that's going to allow 11 Mile to be is, I think the more of these type of developments, yes, you're going to have a little bit more density. By that, I'm talking about the buildings may be a little bit closer to one another. But then I think each building has to look at itself and how it relates to everything else that happens next door, across the street, behind it, everywhere. And I think it could create for some great spaces. It could create for some great, real flexible design. And I think from what I can see, I have my office here. I'm very proud of this community. I wouldn't have moved my office here if I didn't think that that this whole city has that potential. I think it does have this potential. But at the same time, we need to make sure that everybody like yourselves, like the Planning Commission, who are in great positions to make these decisions, realize that and give that opportunity to really make it something quite unique and different than any other community in this area. I don't know if I answered the question, but
You answered a lot of questions.
I'm very firm believer in this, So I mean, I love this city. Otherwise, I would never have invested in this city.
Any other questions? Any other comments? All right, well, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
I like the design, I like the thought process. Sort of don't know if the people aren't gonna necessarily like looking into their next door neighbor, but maybe in the future that lot will be changed. But since we're pushing it back, or since he's proposed to change the front and push it back a little bit to give a little alleviation to the 11 Mile, I'm in favor of it.
You know what, I just thought of something. I do have another question for the petitioner. When it comes to this type of a design, and let's just say you didn't have the little patio space there, would you have to do that firewall?
You have to do the firewall
So,
per unit.
but you can't have windows and things on a firewall, right?
No,
So it's just gonna be raw.
what you have is every unit is separated by a firewall. And then normally what happens is either side of that firewall, usually there's like 4 feet either side of that firewall that you have to have an arrayed assembly at that point. So you could still have openings, but there's distances that you have to be conscientious about.
Okay, because I was thinking in terms of one particular building downtown Royal Oak now, that was so close to the other building that it looks like raw concrete, and it's not very appealing when it gets to be so tight like that. One building can be really tall, and the other one can be
Yeah.
very short. I mean, yours is, obviously, the design is amazing, and it's got the little buffer on the side, so.
Yeah, and then the
you
other
need
thing
that,
is you have to be very careful that you don't take these units and like typical people do, architects, they take and they flip them back and forth. Well, you can't have that. I mean, you have to be careful. If you have an outdoor community space, you don't want that directly next door, let's say, to their living space. There's usually, you can see there's a gap between it, so you have to be very careful how these people are going to use the building from the inside out. And by the way, we would love the opportunity if that building to the east of us were available. I'm sure Mr. Logvin would jump on that one really fast, too. So we've, in fact, as we've laid this out, we've kind of thought to ourselves, just in case something else happens, the one to the east, the one to the west, the one to the north, how is this whole thing going to kind of fit in the picture of a, I would call it a small little master plan. So these are some of the things that we're thinking of. But as of now, nobody wants to sell.
Any other comments? Well, I'll be supporting this motion. You know, the first thing that I think sort of popped in my head when I looked this over was, if we were to adhere to the neighborhood business zoning, I don't see how we make that work. Parking it, traffic flow, I just don't see on a 66-foot wide lot with a business owner who's probably gonna wanna build up to the street level, so he has the highest visibility, how you can make it work on a lot of this size. So a multifamily, I think, is really the only obvious solution, and what he's proposing, particularly now that it's set back a little bit further, so the landscaping looks so much nicer, I think it's a real nice infill for an odd lot. Without any other comments, I will go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very, very much. We appreciate it.
We still got to.
Thank you.
We still, do we have to act on H, or?
We did.
No, I think the amendment was
No, A through G.
A through G.
So we still have to deal with H.
We do have to
Petitioner
deal
can
with it.
voluntarily withdraw H if he so chooses.
How far do we have to be off the property line?
No, that's the facade issue with it being
Right.
built, right, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's the facade. As long as we have an entry along that side, we're okay with that. Is that right? A door. As long as we have a door or some major refinement to the elevation, we're fine in that. We don't have any situations as far as setback is concerned, right?
No setback. So do you want to withdraw it, or do you want the board to vote on that?
No, I think what we should do is, I think we should withdraw that.
Yeah.
Okay, we can withdraw it. We'll make modifications as we
Yeah.
talked. Okay?
Right. Very good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Great
Presentation.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along, that takes us to our next item of new business, which is item number D2, case number 171242, public hearing for the appeal of PDA Family Enterprises LLC, petitioner and Generation 3 LLC, owner for the following variances. And again, I'll just hand you the ball and let you run with it.
The petitioner proposes to extend the existing public right-of-way and the street length to create 4 single-family home sites, each with direct access and frontage to that extended street. You'll see from the site plan shown on the screen in front of you. The zoning ordinance requires that each new single-family home site be a minimum lot depth of 100 feet and a minimum lot area of 6,000 square feet. Each of the lots measures 63 feet in width, 63 feet in depth. So the petitioner is seeking a waiver from that 100-foot standard for each of the lots. And 2 of the lots are 3,780 square feet. The other 2 lots are 3,800 and approximately 12 square feet. Again, the minimum standard is 6,000, so they're seeking a waiver from the minimum size requirements for each of those lots. The lots that are being created need waivers from their lot size requirements. The petitioner has acknowledged that, and they're seeking a waiver from that. If the board does grant the waiver and they proceed forward through the numerous steps that may proceed, they would unquestionably be back in front of you in order to actually construct anything on the site. There isn't enough what we'll refer to as buildable area on each of these properties in order to simply obtain a building permit and start constructing something. So if, provide some examples for you. We have a minimum required front yard setback of 25 feet and a minimum rear yard setback of 35 feet. If we add those 2 together, that totals 60 feet. Each of these lots is 63 feet in depth. So no matter what they want to build, the placement of the homes would require waivers to those front and rear yard setback standards. Another example may be each of these lots is less than 4,000 square feet. A standard two-car garage is 400 square feet. That's bigger than 10% of the lot size. So if they wanted to build a standard two-car garage, they would be in front of you for a waiver from the maximum allowable accessory lot coverage. I could provide you other examples, but I think those are some decent ones to begin with. So with that, you'll see in the packet the sketch that they provided, and today we were provided in the mail, we received a letter from a neighbor, so you'll see that in the packet as well.
Any questions for staff? Not seeing any. Are the petitioners present?
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
I guess I'd like to start off by asking.
Can I ask you to
question.
introduce yourself just for the record, please?
Anthony Yesbeck.
Thank you.
Asking a question. Listening to Joseph, and we went back and forth on this. You know, the variances tonight are related, obviously, to ultimately what we would build on the site. But I'm not sure if it would make more sense to present the completed package so you can see what the house is going to look like, what the garage, two-car garage is going to look like. You know, instead of attacking it in two sessions, if you saw all the plans, I don't know if that would be easier.
I guess, Joseph, I guess I'm kind of confused why it hasn't been done that way.
I had that conversation with the petitioner, and he elected to proceed forward based on this variance request and then come back at a later point in time.
I'd kind of like to vote on them both at the same time myself.
It would be a separate variance request, since we'd be obviously having more variances. It'd be a new case, it'd be a new public notice.
Even though both discussions are talking about the depth of the lot, I think the board might get a better picture if they see the home and the front setback and the rear setback. And just, you know, listening to the introduction here, that's the sense that I have.
I mean, is this something that you would want us to table until the following meeting? Is this something you can do in 30 days, or?
It's not going to be a tabled case, it would be a new
'Cause they need
request.
new
Because he'd be adding additional variance requests.
Would be
Right,
lots
right,
of
right.
variances,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, could we adjourn it to the February meeting so there's plenty of time? Because I know the deadline for submission is much earlier than, it's probably passed already.
Again, it's going to be a new variance request.
I think what Mr. Murphy is saying is, at this point, if you want to withdraw this request entirely and then start it back at square one, is that what you're saying?
You have to start from scratch. We've noticed to the residents, presuming they're here for this case, that there are variance requests related to the minimum lot size and the minimum depth. We'd have to tack on others based on knowing that whatever you presented would require additional variances. So it wouldn't be a modification to this variance request, it would be a brand-new request because we'd have new items added to it.
We have the additional items to show the complete picture.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's just the way everybody's nodding. I think that makes more sense. And I think we have a very, a much better proposal tonight than we did back in September. And we're excited to present it. But I think maybe just presenting the whole thing might be better.
I mean, if there's any board members who want to chime in on what Mr. Yesbeck is saying, please do. I see a lot of nodding, but I don't see anybody saying anything. Yes, sir.
The only thing I'd say is, if you want to know for sure how we stand versus 3 lots versus 2 lots versus 4 lots, this would be the time to do it instead of spend more time on preparing for 4 lots when it might be sunk with us already thinking about only 2 or 3 lots. That'd be my only thought, because otherwise you're throwing away the $700 you did right now and have to spend another $700 to come back for a full package. Is that right, Joseph? Or so you already spent your $700. You might as well find out if we're for the 4 or if we're not for the 4.
Well, why don't we do this? Because I'm sure there are people who want to speak on this issue this evening. I'm guessing that's the case. Why don't you go ahead and take a seat, Mr. Yesbeck? I'm going to open up the public hearing. Since they did come out, I'll allow them to speak, and then after the public hearing, you can determine for yourself, based on maybe some of the things that your neighbors say, how you want to proceed. How's that sound? Sounds good. All right, thank you. All right, with that being the case, I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address us on this matter?
Yes, my name is James Murray. My wife and I own a house right next door to this property. And we have no objections to a couple houses being built there. In fact, we'd like it very much, as they would probably take care of the lot a lot better than it's being taken care of now. As just has been brought out, there just isn't the room on this lot for these houses. They've tried before to put houses there, and you folks have voted that down. And they want to face them to the north. The street runs north and south. All the houses are facing east and west. And it just doesn't fit into our community. We have no problem with the two houses that have been proposed along there. The city has approved them. I understand they have to put a cul-de-sac in there. The problem arises years and years ago when Mr. Kernich was allowed to split the lot. He split the back part of the lot. I don't know how many feet he took out of it, but that prohibits any houses from being built on that lot, on that portion on the east side of the lot. And like I said, we have no problem on a couple of houses being built there facing the east, aligned with the rest of the houses, but they keep wanting to put houses facing the north. And that's only, we just want to kind of keep everything status quo in our neighborhood. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I have one quick question for the petitioner.
Sure.
If we actually adhered them to the normal 30% max lot coverage, which would only give them a footprint of 1,140 square feet for the footprint, so it'd be a tinier footprint in a house, how would you feel on that with the 4 houses, if it was limited that way?
Well, with the size of the lot, they still don't have room for the back and the front. They need I don't know what the dimensions are.
Right.
And but and another thing, they want to put that road in there. And the last time they wanted to put it in, they wanted a 25-foot easement to put the road in. Well, we didn't buy that lot to have a corner house, and that road would be right up against our fence line. And it's just squeezing everything in where there isn't room on that lot. I mean, it's a nice lot, but it's just laid out, I'd say funky, that it's a long and narrow lot, and the houses should be put, rather than facing north, they should be facing to the east. And sometime they could put some, I don't know what variances they would need to put houses on the other side, but that's the only objections we have to it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Anybody else? Anybody? Going one? Oh.
If you grant them this.
Can I ask you to introduce yourself?
Betty Miller, I'm
Thank you.
sorry.
No problem.
If you grant them this building this way, my next door neighbor has the finished part that would complete that all the way to the sewer line, the end of my next door neighbor's. It completely completes it. I know at one point, Mr. Kendrick, who owned the property, knew they wanted to purchase the part that ends of his lot. They wanted to buy that much property that completes to do with their building. Now, if you okay what they want here, what's to stop them or anybody else from buying this land, which I know they're interested in selling? She works for Myers, and Myers has built a place up north, and her family is up there. What's to happen next if you okay this? Then we're going to really have a boom of more houses at a dead end. I mean, this is already 4. I didn't mind the 4. If you extended the road and you, like the other gentleman said, 2 on each side, that lined up with the houses that were already there. But this lot butts against their property, and will have these houses looking into their backyards inside of their house. So that is my concern, that if you open this up, you're going to open a can of worms, and we'll end up with too many. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? All right, not seeing anybody, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. Mr. Yazbek?
I will say that was a lot more enjoyable than the last public hearing that we had on this matter. I think it'd be best, just even your question alone, what's left after you grant the 4? I think we're gonna have to spend $700 to come back anyway to give you folks a full picture. I just think that makes more sense after listening to everything. I will say one thing, this road is not a, exciting thing for us. It's an expensive thing. The only way that we can do 2 on each, because we looked at that, because you guys wanted us to look at that. The only way we could do it is to bring the road all the way through to Farnham. And I know if you want to hear screaming and hollering, let us propose that the road goes all the way to Farnham. That was what they're most adamant about.
I just wanted it at the lot line where the church is.
Ma'am, we're on this side of the table, I'm sorry.
So, I guess I would ask that
You want to withdraw this petition at this
withdraw the
point?
petition, and with the understanding that we're coming back with the full boat.
All right. Do we need to take action, or he can just withdraw it and that's it?
Petitioner, you can accept his withdrawal.
So accepted.
See you later.
Okay, thank you very
Hey,
much.
thank you, sir.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Appreciate that. All right, let me get caught up on my computer here.
Our schedule, big time.
Multifamily development, so they have like two.
All right, so that moves us on to our, our final item of new business, which is case number D3, or excuse me, item D3, case number 171243, public hearing on the appeal of Hill and Homes Incorporated, petitioner and owner for the following variances. Mr. Murphy, I'll let you take that one too. Why not?
Okay.
Make it 3 for 3.
Yes, this site is located at the corner of Midland and Alexander, and the petitioner is proposing to demolish the existing structures and construct a new 2-story single-family dwelling with an attached garage that's accessed off of Midland. The lot to the north has a front yard setback along Alexander. So sadly enough for this petitioner, they're required to have a setback equal to that property along Alexander. The petitioner is proposing to have the house maintain a 22.88 east setback along North Alexander, and again, that house to the north maintains a greater setback, 35.2 feet. So the petitioner is seeking a waiver from that standard. Additionally, the proposed dwelling maintains a 29.28-foot south front yard setback along Midland. They need to be no less than the setback of the house to the west, which maintains a 30.94-foot south front yard setback. So they're seeking a slight waiver of 1.66 feet from the minimum required south front yard setback along Midland as well.
Any questions for staff at this point? Yes, sir.
One quick question. The home on North Alexander, actually that'd be Midland, that'd be the east of this property, that appears to comply. Were any variances required for that home to be constructed? Looks like a fairly new home, just to the east of this lot. It's either on Midland or North Alexander.
North.
It'd be the north, right?
Yes. That lot, let me zoom in on
No, this would be to the east, along Midland,
So across
on the
the
corner,
Across
across
the
the street,
street.
on the corner.
There's 2 newer constructions. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a corner lot. It's a fairly new house, new construction.
Faces Alexander, I think.
The garage faces Alexander.
Is that
So does the front door, I think.
the whole thing?
But it appears to comply with the
Yes.
setbacks.
With both of the setbacks.
So
correct.
no variance is required to construct that home?
Without going back through the file, I don't know for certain.
understand.
But it appears if you look purely at the aerial photograph and you draw the lines and you extend them, it does appear to meet those setbacks.
Okay, that's what it looks like. Thank you.
I see somebody else's hand. All right, sir, the floor is yours.
Well, I think the variance request
And introduce yourself, please, for the record.
Alan Holmes.
Thank you, sir.
You, the way Mr. Murphy introduced it, it's sort of a strange situation for us. I guess we were originally under the impression, and this is why we provided the measurements, that we would be looking at what is closest to the curb on the house to the north of us on North Alexander. But we are actually looking at what is closest to us. Isn't that correct, Mr. Murphy? Instead of 26.90 with a variance request of 3.9, we end up with a variance request of, was it 12 point something? 12.32, because we're actually 35.2. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm looking to illustrate something for a point of reference. I'll refer back to the survey. So I'm sorry, you're referring to the house to the north?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That 26.9 feet measures to, and I'll bring up this, that measures to the garage, the attached garage. This is the floor plan for that home to the north that we were looking at. That measures to this point the garage.
Right.
The nearest point of living space is the projection on the dining room when they enter.
understood.
So the measurement for their front yard setback is not to the garage, it's to the nearest point of living space.
Understood.
So the survey does illustrate it to the garage. We took this survey and determined that the difference between the garage and the nearest point of living space is another 9 feet 4 inches, so we tacked on another 9 feet 4 inches
Okay.
for your benefit.
Thank you. I appreciate
How do
that.
we decide that?
It's, the front yard setback's measured to the nearest point of living space. So that house,
Just because, or?
no, because there's a standard that says you can have an attached garage that projects no more than 7 feet into the front yard setback.
It's all very confusing.
Yes, yes, it is.
I think we can sort of see where we're at. If we had the property and we didn't have the variance and we had to go approximately 32 feet towards the west on the property, it essentially cuts us in half. It cuts our lot in half. And I don't know how usable we really would be at that point, so here we stand.
Are there any questions for the petitioner at this point?
Just
Mr. Klein, yes, sir.
one question regarding the 1.66 foot variance. Is there a reason why the house can't be slid back to the
No.
north? Can we just eliminate that one variance?
Withdrawn.
Okay.
That's a good question.
And that's measured to the nearest point of living space, which was their cantilevered second floor.
Correct, okay.
Mr. Curtis?
Roughly how many homes have you built in Royal Oak, you think, Mr. Ray?
Oh, well, hey, I didn't expect. 350, 400 maybe?
Quite a few.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think.
But the hardship presents itself because you didn't understand the ordinance when you acquired this lot? I don't understand what the hardship presented itself to you.
Completely and totally unaware of this particular sort of strange ordinance that, digging deep into the books you find. That's the long and short.
But Mr. Murray says it's a standard measure to living space. That's a standard practice in zoning.
In this case, just the very nature of the house to the north, its design, it's the nearest point of living space is 35 point some odd feet further back. That petitioner elected to, or that builder elected to place the house exactly where they did. So that then adds a calculation to whoever comes to develop the corner lot, which here we are today.
But the existing structure was compliant with that slightly larger setback?
Back in the day, yeah, that particular type of design now wouldn't be allowed because the garage projects more than 7 feet from the front face of the home.
we go back to April 13th of 2017 for the ZBA meeting, where we had the very same issue on Maple Grove and Catalpa, where the zoning board granted a 15-foot on a 39. This is the very same type of scenario. It's just a very strange thing to have happen.
Let me go over to Mr. Ofack. I know he's been waiting to ask a question.
No, I was gonna ask a question, but I realized the answer to it. Oh.
All right. And any other questions for the petitioner? All right. Did you have anything you wanted to answer?
Dan Rozak's the buyer, the
Okay.
homeowner.
All right, well then, let me go ahead and open up and close the public hearing at the same time, just for formality's sake, and bring it back to this side of the table. Yes, sir.
Since he withdrew the one variance, I will motion to grant variance A as requested.
We have a motion,
I'll support.
second by Mr. Klatt. Mr. Ofack?
This is a corner lot. Corner lots always present their own problems and unique circumstances, and because of that, I can understand the need for that variance. He's not going too far beyond where the adjacent to the north is, so I don't have an issue with it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is a relatively large lot at 70 feet. I think you presented several examples here. I'm looking at these, and like 625 Alexander, that's only 58 feet wide. 601 Alexander is 58. All of them are much smaller than this, but that home to the north really does create a big challenge for you. So that's why I'll be in support of this, with the removal of the first one, or the 1.66 foot variance.
Mr. Kroll?
Yes, I will be supporting this as well. And I think sometimes the rules get kind of caught up in, I mean, you take a look at this lot, it's a beautiful lot. What we'll do to it by putting in what I think to be kind of an obscure law, I think would really screw it up and hurt the neighborhood. So I'll be supporting it for those reasons.
Any other comments? Yeah, I'll be supporting it as well. I mean, from time to time, we have developers or builders come up here and sort of plead ignorance on various aspects of the ordinance. This is one, when I read it, I was like, how is this even being triggered? And it made absolutely no sense. So the fact that you didn't realize, I think that's a perfectly understandable mistake. And what you're offering, I think, makes perfect sense given the size of this lot. Seeing no other comments, I will go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Is there any other business for the good of the body? We are looking for the mystery motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Kroll,
I'll support.
second by Ms. Anderson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, was that, sorry?
She's rejecting it?
Yeah, we're getting things on the hour. We haven't been here long enough yet.
Well, you guys knock yourselves out, I'm leaving. We are adjourned at, was it about 7:53? Perfect.